Welcome everybody. Thank you, Joe. We have two items on the agenda tonight. As you know, one is Joe's going to present some stuff about demolition, and then we're going to talk about Balsley Park. A guest from Park Vendome, and we have Matthew, welcome, and Maya, you're welcome to both of you. I'm JD, I'm the co-chair of this committee, along with Paul Devlin, co-chair, and introduce yourself.
Joe Stucci, member.
Bob and Farrell, public member.
Kevin Collins, member.
James McDonald, member.
Ted Arenas, member.
Frank Balsley, member.
And Park Vendome, sir.
David Lane.
David, welcome, David.
Thank you.
And Janine, there's Leslie. Hi, Leslie, can you hear us? Leslie has,
Yes, Leslie Bogosian Murphy, member. Thank you.
he has, children tonight. I don't know who that is. Oh, Richard Bass. Are you here, Richard? Can you hear us?
I can hear you,
Good.
and now you can see me.
Hey, there you are. Welcome, Richard. Yes, Joe.
Just want to note for new business, we have an update from a meeting the board leadership had yesterday regarding MSMX, zoning, and some landmark issues that came up yesterday.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Well, without further ado, Joe, would you like to jump into the
Yes.
Clinton Housing Development Company?
I'm going to introduce the CHKLU community planning team, who has been working, if you remember, for a number of months, we have talked about, is there an ability to get an interactive map for the buildings that are protected from, residential buildings protected from demolition? That can be a tool the board can use, put on its website, and figure out a way, so people live in the building, am I protected, am I not, what is it, how do we make this thing match? So there are two people who have worked on it, if you can step up to the table. Matt Sullivan and Maya Feltenhausen, introduce yourself and talk about the work that you've done.
Sure. I'm Matt Sullivan, community planner. You guys may have seen me in these meetings before.
You can sit here. Easier to see.
And as Joe just recommended, JD, protect, please.
Yes.
Otherwise, the owl will not hear you.
So I'm Matt Sullivan, the community planner with Clinton Housing Development Company. Joined by
And myself says, and I'm the planning intern at.
And you must be louder.
I'm the planning intern at Clinton Housing Development Company. My name is Maya Balsley.
So I will let Maya take the floor for this presentation. Janine, can you pull up, can you share the copy of the presentation on the screen?
Sure.
Thank you. And we have a couple of printed copies here. For who want it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So as you can see here, approximately 75% of Manhattan Community District 4 are special purpose districts. So we mapped out the boundary, but Special Clinton District, Special Hudson Yards District, Special Garment Center District, and the Special West Chelsea District, as well as the Special Hudson River Park District, they're all part of MCB4, and they cover approximately 75% of the entire district.
Yes, historic districts too.
This
Not
is just
part of
special
this.
zone
Okay,
purpose.
zoning.
District.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So many of these special purpose districts have distinct provisions that protect residential buildings from demolition. It started with the Special Clinton District in 1974, Preservation Area A, which is indicated in red at the very top. That protects residential buildings, all residential buildings from demolition. And as I move further down, the Special Garment Center District, specifically Subdistrict A2, which is also highlighted in red, as well as the Special Hudson Yards District, Subdistricts D4 and D5, and certain special subdistricts in the Special West Chelsea District have residential protections specifically for multiple dwellings that are built after a certain date.
Just to note, it's in Hell's Kitchen, it's that's here, it's D4 and D5, not A4 and A5, right?
Next slide, please. As per our map making process, we first reviewed the zoning text language in the New York City zoning resolution. We indicated those specific sections in the slide. And these special districts have text that protect residential multiple dwellings from demolition. And like I said earlier, for special Clinton district, this includes all residential buildings that are within the sub-district. Then we use publicly available data from NYC Open Data and parsed out these residential buildings and multiple dwellings. And we went through a pretty rigorous process of verifying each building through our community planning team in order to make sure that all of the buildings that are represented on this map are actually protected. So this required looking at building dates or also site visits, also identifying if there were any buildings in the district that were already illegally demolished. So we spent a lot of time in our team talking and identifying the specific buildings that we thought needed further investigation.
You know, in our neighborhoods, there are things that look like something but are something else. There are small building loft conversions that don't look like residential, but they are. So you had to go down deep into things like C of Os and stuff like this to determine what was what.
Next slide, please. So as you can see here, the special Clinton district, all the buildings that are mapped out in yellow in the pink area, the pink red area are protected under demolition, protected from demolition. The building count is indicated as 1,076. The unit count is something that we're still looking on, like I said before, since we're taking a very rigorous approach and verifying and making sure that these buildings are protected. Residential unit counts are a little bit harder to ensure, and we want to be giving the correct information. So that's something that we'll continue to work on and
So
update.
what would be your approximation of the numbers of units? I would say 5 to 8,000.
Yeah, somewhere probably above 5,000.
Well, 5,000.
Yeah.
5,000 units.
Yes,
Present.
because many of the buildings, JD, for example, a sample tenement that normally 20 apartments, not just 10. So therefore, take that multiplier and figure out what this would be. And then there are larger multiple dwellings. You know, let's say on West 55th Street that are 60, 80 units. So those are big multipliers in this.
Yeah. And like the 4th and 5th floor calculation.
Well, getting the base information is the
Yeah,
first.
everything in pink is,
The pink
the
zone,
yellow is
The pink-
protected.
Yes,
Yeah, the pink is not protected.
no, the
Yeah.
pink,
No,
the pink is,
represents,
the
the pink
district.
represents the
Pink is the
preservation
preservation
area
area.
and everything within
That's
the
the
pink
protected one.
are the those are the protected
So-
buildings.
all the buildings you see there are the protected buildings. We have,
you know, something though,
What I'm saying is that the spaces between the protected buildings that are in pink are not protected buildings within the preservation district.
that's correct.
Yes.
And I think it might be helpful for the visual representation to show the non-protected buildings in a different color. And there's 2 types of buildings. One are commercial, 100%, and the other one are community facility, 100%. So that would help the understanding of this, because the green obviously are the open space.
Like the space around the green open space is 450, that, whatever, all of that are on that green space.
That's printing, high school printing. But that's, right, it makes it look like there's nothing there,
right.
but there certainly is.
Yeah.
But that's a good example, because that's a school site that could be entirely redeveloped, right?
And am I hearing right, so single unit, I mean, single occupancy buildings aren't protected?
Right, so, what are protected are multiple, when the district was formed in 1973, it was stated to be any building containing a residential use, right?
Yeah,
And then in the changes that happened around 1990, 2005, it's multiple dwellings, which means 3 or more units.
right, so you probably have a third category there that's not
There you go.
protected, which is single,
Right.
single unit.
Not protected from demolition, but protected,
I'll do that.
all height and everything, that's right.
But for the city of Yes, is that considered demolition or is that an add-on?
This is absolutely on the mark comment, right? A single family house could be demolished and turned into a 9-story building. Yes,
So, but if you have multiple dwellings and it's, let's say, 4 stories high, city of Yes can add 2 additional floors.
they can add 4 additional, 5 additional floors.
What's that considered? Demolition or?
No, that's considered an addition. But JD's earlier concern is, but to do that, you cannot add additional floors to a building under DOB regulations unless you vacate 2 floors below the addition during construction. So that's the risk issue.
Vacate, but then come back when.
Right, well, vacate, buy out, like, there's a whole process to get, because you legally cannot do it. Will someone try to? Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to the next slide, which is a different special district. This is Special West Chelsea District, and the buildings that are identified here specifically respond to the demolition protection, so it doesn't encapsulate the buildings that may be protected from demolition through the High Line. But this is for the demolition. I think there are a few buildings that have some distinct provisions that.
No, that the provisions are about the transferring development rights.
Oh,
And anything could be demolished outside of this cohort.
but yes, the residential buildings that are protected from demolition, in the Special West Chelsea District are significantly less than the Special Clinton District, and there are 27 buildings with 321 residential units. Next slide, please. In the case of the Special Hudson Yards District, so like I said before, it's only in sub-districts D4 and D5, the Hell's Kitchen sub-districts that have the demolition protection. So again, this building count is 27, and with a residential unit count of 889.
Could you also show the streets better in this? 'Cause I think
Yes.
we get lost by not seeing 1910
I think
Avenue.
it might be easier to see on the
On the
printouts, but
bottom.
I'll make sure that it's,
Right, but you
yeah.
can lighten the shading so you
Oh,
can see
yeah.
the streets all the way through, otherwise it's a little confusing.
You can figure it out as well.
Yeah. Like I know that there are those 4 tenements on 36th on the bottom of the map, and then those 2 remaining more confined buildings in the middle on 36th.
I just look for your home in Norrington.
Right, we need not to do that to get a better visual on it, right?
Yeah, next time we'll have the buildings that aren't a part of it also shown, so it's more contextual. Next slide, please. And finally, the Special Garment Center District, so this is specifically sub-district A2, which is indicated in red. And this has a building count of 24, and it protects 389 residential units.
And we should note that there have been multiple sites where we had illegal demolition there. 319, 321 West 38, 317, 319 West 35th, and 357, 59 West 39th.
Is that something that could also be added in future graphics across all of those kitchen?
That'd be good.
19, right?
And that's 19 different sites of those buildings in Mansfield. Right. Or maybe even a different version of that map that says bang, here are the ones that got lost. They didn't get lost, they were legal demolished, actually.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring
Yes.
into conversation.
Next slide, please. So in total, excluding the Special Clinton District unit count, there are 1,067 buildings and 1,599. We expect, as we said, estimated before, maybe 5,000 to 8,000 units
That's a lot of
in
parts.
Special Clinton, so that number could be close to 10,000 residential units. So it is a lot of buildings that are protected, and we think that this should be information that the community knows and is aware of in order to, if you live in the identify if there is illegal demolition going on, and you can report it to the city and take steps that prevent this from happening over and over again. There are, like we said, 19 illegal demolitions that have been reported, so, and this number could continue to rise if we're not aware of the zoning resolution.
I have 2 questions. Sorry, Kevin. The Penny's Market is not a special district, but it is an area covered, so.
Yes.
But you don't want to separate that out, just want to include it.
We included the special district specifically because the demolition protection language is included in those special districts and not, and that's why those are included, but I'm sure it's we could explore like adding it as a layer
Might be a few.
toggle
Yes.
to see different sort of layers that are embedded on the
Great.
district.
Second question, Joe, demolition. What about partial demolition?
If you remove more than 20% of the floor area, it's considered demolition, you must go through a special permit
So
process.
that's an important thing, it's not just total demolition, it's also partial.
Yeah, presentation portion, we might want to have some text or something. A couple of things people can click on to understand what that means.
Yeah, our next slide.
One second, I'll just say methodology. For West Chelsea, I would color the whole thing in pink. Because in fact, the whole area is protected for the residential portion. So it makes it internally consistent.
Can you slide that again?
Correct?
I think this one has it in nothing,
Right.
that reflects that.
Can you go back one slide, Janine? Can you go back one slide, Janine? There. So the pink shows areas that where there's protections. But in West Chelsea, the whole area has the protections. So to make it internally consistent. Like the other ones are sub-districts of the district.
All of them, Highland, special West.
The whole West Chelsea, yeah,
I thought
exactly.
you said you could tear down.
Non-residential buildings.
Oh, right, okay.
Right. So in other words, to make it consistent, pink means you cannot,
Do we really care about Chelsea?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We've lost 3 buildings there.
Quick question, you two worked on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, my mostly work on
You did a very good job, so make it look like you, right? I'm asking this for, maybe like 2 steps down. Is there a particular reason this is being presented, that you're surmising something?
No, it's been on our agenda for months, it's getting bumped off.
Okay.
This grew out, Kevin, this grew out of the illegal demolition issues, and the idea was, how do we figure out? We knew where Hudson Yards, Garment Center, and West Chelsea were. Because those were identified from a study done by Clinton Housing that the board used to get those designated. So we never did a study of all special.
I got you, so let's pretend one list of all the buildings up there, right, hypothetically speaking, and you had it in an Excel sheet. When we say demolition, do we mean straight up demolition, demolition by neglect, partial demolition? And if demolition is occurring in a particular building that's on that hypothetical delineated list on an Excel sheet, one would surmise that they have to go through a city agency to get a permit. Could.
More complicated. I got
Could some central repository, whether it's CB4 or someplace else, get a ding that such a building that's on the Excel sheet has a permit, so one need to be proactive as opposed to being, you follow what I'm
The
saying?
reason I'm smiling is in the first 2 weeks of the Blasio administration, I sat in a meeting with our council member and the mayors, the deputy mayor, and we asked that all buildings protected from this demolition have a tag on them in the DOB website on the block and lot to say, these cannot be partially or fully demolished. And they said, was it? James Parrott. Yeah, he was in the meeting, and they said, we'll have it done probably 3-4 weeks the max.
How many years ago was that?
The first 2 weeks of the Blasio administration. So it's the kind of thing that, if you have a clear delineation, also it helps the property owners, the developers, everybody understand, this can be done here and that can't be done there. So how the demo works is that if you have a plan that removes more than 20% of the floor area of the building, that is considered demolition, and you must go through a whole process of review and a public review, very specific. And they must notify HPD, there's a whole series of things in the text saying you must do this, you must do that.
Right, that's all the regs, but sometimes.
No, in the zoning.
Fair enough, but then sometimes like somebody that comes to here after the fact as opposed to before the fact.
Oh, yeah.
Happens. I'm sorry, Katie, you had a question? Katie Savage?
Janine, can you move Katie over?
Yeah, sorry, where is that? Okay.
Katie, go ahead.
Hello. I just wanted to confirm, did you say there were 19 sites in CB4 that had been lost to illegal demolition?
Yes, that's our whole series of a letter every couple months from 2018 through. We have, those are online, Katie, and certainly the board or the national staff can send you. when we wrote the next letter, we always included the prior ones, always and over, to give it cumulatively was lost. And it,
Got it.
yeah,
And I think what Paul mentioned earlier about potentially having a map that shows all of those sites might be very helpful for just curiosity's sake and just to have.
correct. Yeah, well, we have them.
So are you wearing another hat now, Katie?
Yeah, Katie, we actually.
No,
have
no,
them-
I'm wearing my CB4 hat. I'm just interested in what this map shows.
We
Oh,
actually,
we have one more slide to go. over.
the board has done maps, but as this presentation continues, you'll see there's a whole interactive map feature here, which is the main thing, so consumers can use it.
Yeah, just following up on Kevin's question, I know we do ask for them to add this to the official DOB like
Multiple times over multiple years.
database.
Mhm.
And I mean, I guess it would show up on Zola too, which would be great, but also like their internal database that they use for approving or rejecting permits. And we did include that in our budget ask again this year,
Yes,
as a
we
fairly
did.
high priority ask. What, do you have any information on like, on
Yo,
the status of that?
Well, I will tell you, one of the things they said to us early on is that the original system, DOB Biz, was so old, they couldn't get people who knew how to work that language, like a proprietary system. But now there's a new system called DOB Now, right? So and everything new is filed on DOB Now, the old, not the old stuff. So we know that
But
the
these
new
buildings are old.
No. Every building in the city is now on DOB Now.
Okay,
So they could easily, they can't use the argument, that is so old from the 1990s, we can't figure out how to use it. The new system is very flexible. So maybe the budget has to be somewhat clarified to say that, that might be helpful. Right, that's very clear, DOB Now is the issue.
yeah, that would be good.
Just following it up, and I know the definition of keep doing the same thing over and over, expect different results. That being
Yes,
said,
you do.
sometimes the squeaky wheel, is it worth doing doing a letter or requesting a meeting with the appropriate departmental officials to try to press this? And then ask you to A, put it on their database, so it's flagged, and or B, that if one of these identified delineated buildings has work being done, it gets an email shot to the relevant CB committee board.
Well, even within the agency, because the thing is, so I know for a fact, on DOB Now or DOB Biz, if you're a landmark, there's a flag, right? If you're an environmentally contaminated site, like Western Yards and West Chelsea, there's a flag. A lot of this, I feel, has been a matter of political will, because it can't be that much money to take the landmark thing, copy the function over and call it restricted demolition, right? It's like, so yes, I think anything we can do as a board to add on to how do we resolve this problem to avoid having to think about the amount of time this board has spent on that 35th Street building alone. It's the value is like crazy, so if it's done properly.
Well, if it's amenable to the co-chairs, I would suggest, if it's amenable, a motion
Make the motion.
to have a letter to the appropriate city agencies and departments to put that on their database, and secondarily, that if there's something put in for work done on one of these identified meetings, that the appropriate person in CB4, whether it's the district manager or the chairs of the relevant committee, whatever, get notification.
I'd like to have a plant examiner be told. Internally, like, you can't do that here.
Is there a way to get that type of information stored into the 311 database? So if people call and have a complaint, it can get red flagged. And
That's another good one.
to them, because if it's not in 311 complaints, it just goes to, an agency, they might come, they might not. And that might actually,
Because that's what's gonna originate for a person involved.
Yeah.
A tenant in the
it's
building.
see something, say something, earlier stages, so I think 311 being
We have a
integrated.
motion, we have a friendly amendment to the
Second,
sentence.
yes.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, quick discussion. Paul.
Is there one?
I did have a
Oh, there's
question.
more.
One question I want to ask, probably has to do with the information you have here, though, but in terms of this motion. Is this an issue citywide as well, or is it just unique to these special districts?
It's
Do we know-
citywide for landmarks. because landmarks cannot be demolished.
Are there other, I mean,
Other
I'm surprised
special
there wasn't,
districts.
are there other areas in the city that have demolition restrictions?
Yes,
Yes.
I can see someone nodding.
Yeah,
Yes,
So can we maybe,
yes.
there's areas of Brooklyn probably that have special.
can we
special
add
districts.
to our letter? So it has a little bit more.
I think we need to do the research to
Yeah,
pin those down exactly.
But it doesn't have to run the specific ones, but should be inclusive of sites in Brooklyn and Queens or whatever. It doesn't have to go through each of the blocks and the buildings like this. We don't have to do this much research. But to make sure that we incorporate other city impacts, because that will also, I think, help us get through the system.
Okay, this is great. So please take your motion, please. Kevin?
That we write a letter to the appropriate city agencies and or departments that if one of these identified buildings has any request to have demolition performed within
Full or partial.
any type of demolition, including but not limited to full or partial, performed within their structure, that there should be a flag on their own database. A, B, that the relevant community board gets identified, and C,
And I would say that. The database for the buildings that are not to be demolished are put in the 311 system, so if someone calls, it can be flagged. And put on the top of the list for.
Because I've actually dealt with that like on a Saturday morning. Somebody calling saying this is demolition happening next to me, it's like, what the hell?
And Paul,
And using the same system as landmarks. What was the other category you said, does it?
Environmentally.
Environmental hazard sites.
Assets.
and Paul wants to tie it in.
And just make sure we link it into other sites.
That
across
is,
the
that's
city.
it, the function exists. Right?
The function already exists for landmarks and for environmental hazard sites. We should use a similar system for buildings that are threatened, that are protected buildings from demolition. We have a list here in our district. There are other districts that have this, that's compiled. They can compile it, we don't have to compile it at all, right? And then connect it.
Like the example is, Ted, like, I can't get a permit on a building in Hudson Yards that has that environmental tag on it. Unless we provide X, Y, Z, A, B, and C saying we're not gonna disturb something.
or you doing the citywide or borough one?
I think, I mean, this, the permit goes to a citywide agency, so let's do citywide.
Usually ask the question, I think a week from this Thursday, just with those, there's a borough meetings, we should be able to get all in one shot
It's good.
from Manhattan.
So we have, right?
So all in favor of Kevin's motion? Opposed and present not eligible? Any abstention?
No.
I think. Leslie, did you hear that?
She's in favor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, support.
Okay.
That was excellent, and
I think
That was more presentation.
I understand that, but I'm saying that
Oh,
excellent
excellent.
example of building on. Wall and-
Building on, no pun intended.
And I can say also, let's try to dig out our letters from like the year of the flood on this.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Let's try to dig out our letters where we requested this multiple times. Oh, we should also note in that letter that it's the budget ask. We forgot that.
Yeah, and it has been for many years.
Yeah,
There you go, and you like the letter, Joe, I think, you know, kind of says so.
Matt, just take good notes.
Oh, okay.
Maya, I think you have one more slide, is that right? You have one more slide?
Yes.
Yes, we have one more slide, which is it's the interactive online map that is,
If you could click the link, it should be embedded in that, yeah.
No. And it closed.
I just have to change the windows that I'm sharing. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you scroll towards, like zoom into the special Clinton district?
Yeah, could you make it larger with the plus sign
You
first?
can hover, if you hover on top of the special Clinton district and then I think scroll up, you should be able to zoom in.
There we go.
Okay. And if you try clicking, that's perfect. If
That's
you
good.
just click on any building that you see Just as an example.
How's that?
We've started out the process of creating an interactive map, so if you click the building, you can get the address and like the block and lot number. But of course, like this is something we can build out too, so we can start to include, for example, if it was illegal demolitions, like specific dates that it was documented or stuff like that can be embedded into these pop-ups, so.
Also, a picture, so you know you're clicking on the right house.
When you go to the DOB website, you can often like. Type in the address to see, is there a portion before people make complaints on the DOB website now that they can. See their zone and click rather than typing and then looking to see if it has a C of O and all that other stuff, because a lot of the stuff is.
The good thing here, Ted, if this pop-up gives you the block and lot, that's your real key entry into the DOB website. Because then you can't get confused, because your address may be 361 that you use, but it's really 363 in DOB, but the block and lot are always the same.
Yeah,
That's a really helpful, like, you know,
my question is for the neighbor complaining about the demolition, are they gonna be able to find, this is on the DOB now website?
no, we put this on our board website.
Okay,
Like, the whole idea is to have a local tool that anyone who's in the neighborhood knows, oh, you can go here and find this thing. It was
So we want, are you asking if you want it on the DOB website?
I mean, if you put it on DOB now website, people can go there and click.
If
And
they're not putting a flag on, they're gonna put this, I mean, you gotta.
I think someone who knows how to use the DOB now website with that level of sophistication probably could find their own resources.
Yes,
Yeah.
This is for
That's
people
for like
who-
everyday person,
Yeah.
you know, like,
This isn't for people on the land use committee.
well, I mean, if I was a, like I said, I use DOB now plenty of times for my businesses, but. I probably wouldn't know as a citizen of Hell's Kitchen. That doesn't really come to the community board that much. I wouldn't know where this map was, but I would definitely go to DOB now.
so I'm thinking though, that as
So I'm
we
just
do
talking about for outreach.
how we do outreach for our community board, we have a huge e-blast list, right? We have the ability to put things on the link as this gets figured out entirely. And then this belongs probably on early first pages of our website. That could say, oh, demolition protection map thing, here's where you go, like we've been doing things, the hotter items up front, so people can see it.
You can do some like CO2, like just make sure if you Google demolition Hell's Kitchen, like this isn't what pops up. Figure out whatever we need to do.
Yeah, so I think anything that we can do to, you're right, it's the outreach part that makes it useful.
Question, what percentage of units are protected in the special district? Let's say.
In the preservation area.
Do you have any, is there a way to determine that? Is
I
it-
can get back to you with the number on that, it would just be like counting the buildings in the entire district.
Anything DJD that has a multiple dwelling in the preservation area, or these other things in pink are protected. Period.
Probably 80%, 85%.
But we don't know the number of units.
So, if it has a residential. If it has 3 or more apartments, it is protected. That's it, doesn't matter if it's built in 1900 or it's built in 1985.
So the majority of the building in the special district.
In the
residential
preservation,
buildings,
in the preservation area, not in the special district, the preservation area,
the majority of residential,
all.
all of it. All single.
Unless it's a single family.
Right, correct.
That's my
It's a single family.
And there's extremely few single family homes in the district.
Well, it sounds like you need single or 2 unit, right?
Right. We're not in Southeast Queens. There are very few blocks of single and 2 family homes in our district.
Yeah, although just thinking my block, which is 44 between 9 and 10.
Total housing.
There are at least 5 1 or 2 unit townhouse buildings.
Right, 5 out of how many buildings?
Yeah, no, I know, I'm just saying it's not.
No, this
It's
is
not
good to,
definitive.
it'd be good to know to quantify.
Yeah, yeah,
But that block is sort of unique too. That's not a common block. There's not a lot of blocks that have. A
That
full
many-
block of
that many still
townhouses
townhouses,
with
yeah.
1 or 2 units.
Yeah.
Like my block is mostly tenement walk-ups
Okay.
with 20 units in each building.
The brownstones in Hell's Kitchen are concentrated on 45th, on 46th Street, on 51st Street, and on 44th Street.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And It's 46 that has more of the single or two-family homes. The other ones on 46th Street, lots of SROs, and 51st Street, the same thing, or converted apartment houses. There's very few, it is a single family or two-family. But we can find out easily enough. That's the next like step of this thing.
It's great. It's amazing.
I have a question based just for my own knowledge. If a building has more than 3 units and it's not structurally sound. And it's in a no demolition zone, how do they get around that to rebuild?
It's been in the zoning since 1973. The building is unsound, apartment buildings can be declared unsound, and it can be demolished. The tension here is that we've had many owners make a building structurally unsound in order to get around this, you know.
I mean, I think that really the term we use a lot is demolition by neglect.
Or active.
But people who aren't paying attention, like, it actively neglect a building, so that it falls into such disrepair that the Department of Building has to come in and declare it unsafe to be taken down. So what you're thinking, right, you look at a building that is in such disrepair, it's going to fall down, then DOB comes in and says it's unsafe, then it can be taken down and rebuilt. But it's the demolition through neglect, that's the terminology we're using to identify buildings like that.
But I'm on the flip side of it too. 406 West 57th Street, part of the whole Windermere complex. The owner went in on a Friday night and took a chainsaw and cut the beams in the cellar. That is not by neglect. That's that is activity wanting to, and the Department of Buildings came in and put a vacant on the building. You know, it was deemed to be in this preservation area and they could not demolish it, but they actively cut the beams in half.
So it's best to go in at night. Mac will do that, Joe.
No, this is the,
Not that, but demolish it.
this is the owners went to jail. Vivian and something, remember?
So we will.
Yeah, just so you know, those owners, the managing agent, came to a land use committee meeting, and the managing agent was packing a gun at the meeting.
We have one more hand up in the public. Anita, your hand is up. If you're raising your hand on this topic, keep your hand up and we'll move you over. If not, please lower your hand and we'll bring you to the next. Thank you. Next. All right.
What's the next step? This is fantastic. This is really so neat.
So we'll take all the feedback from tonight's meeting. We will update the map according to the feedback that we heard earlier, which is to include the buildings that are not protected on the map to give more context as to what actually, like what's the differences in the district between buildings that are protected and buildings that aren't. We're going to finalize the unit count for buildings within the special Clinton district. And we're gonna expand the pop-ups because we think that there's more valuable information that can be provided on the mapping pop-ups.
Number of units, for example.
Yeah, number of units, that's the big one, is number of units and a picture of each building. And then we will recirculate and we'll take more comments and more feedback. And eventually, hopefully within a few months, we can get this up on the community board's website and get it dispersed.
So what I ask is that the committee look at it again, that the revision, look at it again, and then at some point resolve to include this on the community's website, community board's website.
I also want to, thinking about Ted's point about how do we get this into people's minds, I think that the buildings that have been neglected and demolished, and Windermere example, are stories that I think we can tell to highlight why this is so important, right? So to look at the 19 demolition by neglect situations we have, cite some of those examples.
Oh, a map of the stories and the problems of the stories.
And then say, this could happen to you, but you're in a protected building. Right? Like, so I think to make people come in and look at this, I think we have to show real life experiences of what has happened in our districts. And that homes are being taken away, housing units are being taken away, and why are we doing this, right?
And we had entire unstabilized buildings that were demolished.
Right, so the reason why we're doing this is so that this demolition by neglect does not continue on, it's not a pattern moving forward. So I would like to link this somehow.
Then may be a separate map, because that's really interesting to do, because of our board's letters, we have all that documentation. We have the photos before.
We're going to highlight them on the map.
Right.
You can maybe extract the other data and just have those be the highlighted piece. of
Yeah,
map,
there's
and
tools,
like
there's
Make something out of
there's
this.
mapping tools that allow you to tell a story
Yeah.
similar in that way.
I want to get people to see this and how.
We need
why
to
would
get
people
flyers
wanna see
out at Rise.
Well, no, but the truth is that, honestly, but no kidding, people live in a building. There's all different types of people live in these buildings, all of a sudden, what the hell, you know, like right opposite Rise, 858 9th Avenue many years ago. But the owner set it on fire and it was gonna be demolished.
And we're still waiting to find out what happens with that 57th Street location. Say that for, I don't know, 10 years.
More, but I started working in those buildings in 1980.
Katie's hand up. Katie, did you put your hand up for another question? I think you re-raised it. Janine, can you move Katie over?
Just coming over.
Thanks.
Hello. I think I just heard this right again. Being on Zoom it's hard. In the room, everything gets garbly. I know, Joe, you mentioned that, you know, the community board has a lot of letters about the 19 locations where there has been demolition, along with images. While that's great, honestly, no regular person is going to look up a community board letter.
No.
So if there is, again, a map where, like, I do this for my syringe locations, just using Google Maps, which is not very sophisticated compared to what you have. But if you click on a location, it has all the images. If you can link back to the community board letter, you can link back to any other like media stuff on there. So then everything relating to that specific location can be found through the map, because we're living in a time where visuals are more important than anything. People don't want to read words. They want to be able to see things. It's unfortunate. But I think being able to show any even historic photos showing this is what the buildings looked like, and then this is what they are now, and like the process of the demolition to kind of see it. And just because it's fresh in my mind, you know, the situation that's happening on 9th Avenue between 37th and 38th Street, where you have those two big buildings going up in lots where there was illegal demolition. So something like that can show, you know, here's what it looked like before, here's as buildings were demolished, and then this is what happened in its place, just to, you know, have the whole story. And then you can link to all the community board letters related to each specific property.
And there are multiple news stories about these things too, because they were covered a lot by the press at that point.
Special
Yeah.
edition of 42nd Street.
Putting on my other hat,
The article's already written.
this is definitely
As you were sitting here.
West 42nd Street would definitely, you know, be interested in helping to spread the word whenever the interactive map is finalized. We'd be more than happy to do something. Again, other hat, West 42nd Street hat.
I don't see your press credentials anymore, Katie.
When you
I can't change my name that quickly.
Would it be easy to compile all the buildings that are non-residential in, say, the special district? How many? Just a number. That's easy to do. The communities, the churches, the community things,
They're all very
garages, just a number. How many there are?
We can get
We
back
can
to
get
you
that
on,
for
on-
you.
yeah.
We have that advanced, yeah.
Because that-
It's relatively easy to,
Easy to count.
once we have the data.
Things are colored, you can do, these interactive maps allows you to like say, give me X
Yeah.
number of like, it's very interactive, it's very
The
like.
fifth floor, make sure. Anyway, thank you so much. That was just terrific, just great.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Long overdue. We apologize for delaying.
You guys had big time.
This committee had a few items.
We had a couple of things. Big time land use actions.
Thank you both. Oh,
I one other quick question on the demolitions. Initially, when I saw this agenda item about demolitions protections, I was wondering if it would be something that like would flag buildings that there are concerns that there's potential demolition by neglect. I don't know, or just illegal demolition in general. I don't know if that's something that's able to be looked at to kind of, or, you know, because I know in the past, like, you know, the building on 47th Street, 343, that was, you know, a resident on the block flagged that. Is there a way to potentially kind of note, like this building looks like it's prime for some kind of illegal demolition, or is that too hard to
Katie,
figure out?
Katie, this software is very sophisticated. You can put in layers. So there's a base layer and then you can put in different layers of different types of things, certainly. It has to be figured out how that would work, that's all.
Cool.
Thank you, Katie. Oh, it's all you.
All right. Item 2, the Balsley Park recertification of the kiosk. You probably remember at last month's meeting, we talked about this application. We went through a long list of conditions we wanted. We essentially voted to approve with conditions. But then the applicant graciously asked for an extension, which gave us more time to build in conditions and stipulations. We did a walkthrough on the site on February 27th. 5 of us from this committee, me, JD, Kevin, Leslie, and Rachel. We were joined by the Sheffield representative Richard Bass and the board president from Sheffield and the building manager from Sheffield. And then we were joined by 2 people from Park Vendome. David's here, Anita's online. We did a walkthrough of the site. We have subsequently received a commitment letter from the Sheffield. It's in Dropbox. One of the things that came up in our conversations that I was thinking about is a lot of the conversation was about the kiosk revenue was going to pay for the maintenance. But then we started to look at all the repairs and maintenance work that needed to be done. And the revenue from the kiosk ain't gonna come close to paying for those renovations. So rather than linking the kiosk revenue to the renovations, Sheffield has committed to a $200,000 capital improvement budget. And they will move forward with the renovations and upgrades on the park. We also had asked for specific timelines, so we have that now within this commitment letter. They were supposed to be going to get started on March 10th and have everything completed by May 1st, which I think coincidentally is around the time of the city council member using the park for some sort of jazz festival. So I wanted to be clear about the separation of the budget from the revenue, because I didn't want them to come back and say the kiosk failed and therefore we didn't have the money to pay for the renovations and upgrades. So that has now been separated. There's a distinct timetable. You'll see in the letter that they include landscaping issues, the replanting of trees, masonry work, fixing all the steel, all the red line construction, all that concrete being fixed and repaired with paint that's gonna last more than a week. As well as a collection of security cameras being installed, including 8 new cameras that'll be wirelessly connected to the Sheffield, which is something else we were concerned. We didn't want to have to run cables across the block and through Park Vendome. So this, in my opinion, has brought us to where we wanted to be. And so I feel very comfortable saying that we move forward on the approval of the recertification with these conditions, basically the same motion we passed last month, but now we have it all in writing. Today, we also received a letter from the West 55th Street Block Association that is in support of this recertification.
Did they mention anything about security? Didn't we say something about having by the park, the security come back?
We did talk about some regular checking in and using a QR code of some sort that did not make it into this letter. We can try to add it again.
I mean, they do have the security cameras being monitored though, right?
Yeah, the security cameras that would be wired into the lobby of the Sheffield. So that whoever's on duty there would see what's going on.
Apparently they lock the park up. And it's early dogs, I mean.
You can attach the cameras at least. There's a program now that allows.
So Richard's here. Richard can, Richard presented to us last month on this. He was at the walkthrough with us. He's representing Sheffield. Richard, is there anything you want to add that
No, Paul, you did a great summary. Thank you. And I apologize for not being there in person. I think I have the flu and I didn't want to contaminate you all. The landscaping work will actually start tomorrow, is what I was told. Your summary of what's contemplating the cost, we kind of believe it's going to exceed the 200,000. The kiosk vendor wants to get in there as quickly as possible, so he doesn't lose the spring and summer months. Um, I, I think this is a positive step forward. There's new leadership at the Sheffield. These commitments are going to be in place in the next 6 weeks. And when I come back in 3 years, we'll have a different story to tell.
Great, thanks. We have some people, let's go to committee members in the room. Any questions? Committee members in the room? We'll go to Leslie, whose hand is raised. Leslie?
Thanks, Paul. Hi, Richard. Just two things I want to follow up from our meeting, our site walkthrough meeting. One was you were going to look into leveling the mound as a landscaping feature. And the second was what we're going to do, or what we could do with the awful child area, not really a child area anymore, but that section. I know you said you were going to look into those two. Thank you.
I did look into the leveling the dirt. I got an emphatic no from the landscape architect. So that was a no. In terms of, matter of fact, can I ask, is city planning in the room?
No.
Okay, so in terms of changing the gate of the child area,
But you are being recorded, Richard.
I know. I think the best sense is during this repair process, we'll examine how to address that, and whatever changes to that configuration, we will raise 3 years from now when we come back for recertification. To raise that now with city planning will delay their processing.
Can I ask you a question? What the reasoning was no for flattening that mound?
Yeah.
Because I
Me
live
too.
really close to the area, and I gotta tell you, that big mound makes that park area like really non-usable for any, patrons or even children, and it could actually be a risk if the child fell concrete.
I'll be real honest with you. They didn't give me a reason. I kind of agreed. It was Leslie's suggestion.
Who was the
I
they?
The landscape.
I thought it was prudent. You know,
But Richard, did you ever find out if there's anything, we asked if there was like a water tank or something
there's nothing.
underneath?
There's nothing underneath it.
Like, why would they say no?
So Richard, can I ask you, that's the landscape architect who designed it. He's not he doesn't own it. So why is this not the Sheffield's decision to make, as opposed to the landscape architect who has a name that has been around for a while?
Well, here's my suggestion.
Okay.
Put that in your resolution and add that to the list of the commitment.
If I may,
Well, I'll call you in a minute.
what's about the map?
I will call you in a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead, Richard.
No, that's my suggestion. I don't have a good answer for you. I'm just repeating what was told to me. The Sheffield and the landscape architect believe differently about that mound, that it's well loved, but I don't have a good answer for you.
No, Richard, I think that your advice is sound. What we'll do is add into our requests from the board that the mound be leveled. Since you can't commit to that right now because you've been told no by your people, we can't ask you to put it into a commitment letter, but we can ask for it to be in our part. We can ask for it to be in our part of the recommendation.
My only suggestion on describing the leveling, it's not taking it down to the level of the concrete enclosure, but to take off 6-8 inches and make it more a flat top instead of a mound.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Richard.
Sorry, Paul, I just want to follow up on that point. When we said your landscape architect said no, but it's not, landscape, and we will put in the letter, obviously, whoever writes it, probably Paul, right? The landscape architect could do anything. it's up to us, or you, I should say, the Sheffield. It's not, right? Not necessary. I mean, they say no, but not no, like Paul brings up an excellent point. It's not because there's some sort of piping or water tank or anything underneath. It's just a, a work order measure, correct?
That's what I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Even if they planned it, it would be good. It looks like it's about.
So
8
we'll,
feet.
we'll add that into our letter of recommendations. Thanks, JD. David?
I sent some photos just recently to Janine. If you take a look at two of them, I believe, they're not great electronics. You will see that there are two very large trees related to that mound. You will see a problem that I have is the roots surround the mound. But if you eliminate the mound, those trees are gonna go away as well.
I don't think it's eliminating the mound, just.
Excuse me?
No, if you level the mound, it could have, what he's saying is if you level the mound.
Janine,
you have a
show the
negative-
pictures, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Let me try to explain it to Joe. If you level the mound, what David said is you could damage the roots of the trees, in which case the trees would end up coming down.
Gonna be hard
And
not
so
to.
to level the mound, if it disrupts.
I'll take
the
up my
roots of the
community
trees-
board hat, put my long-term gardener hat on for a second. If there are large trees there, those roots are not gonna be toward the surface, they're gonna be
Take
going
a
down.
look at the photographs that Janine has, and I won't say anything else.
Okay,
Take a look at the photos and you'll understand.
Thank you. And I remember seeing that myself when we did the walkthrough. Gina, can you move Anita over so she can speak?
Sure, 1 second.
Hello.
Hello, Anita. Go ahead.
Okay, so there were just a few things. Number one is if you remove trees, because the letter mentions removing, I think, 5 or 6 trees, there have to be 5 or 6 replacements for those trees. Otherwise, you can look right into the Park Vendome from Balsley Park.
They'll be replaced.
They will. Thank you so much. Number 2, as we discussed, if we're not changing the children's playground, the flooring of the children's playground is chewed up. And underneath the seats, there's a lot of mildew. In prior years, they did try to do the power washing, which didn't succeed in terms of getting rid of the mildew under the seating. So we did speak about having to purchase some kind of chemical to treat the mildew. If you're replacing the flooring, excellent. If you are not, you're going to have to do something to make that flooring safe for children, because there's a lot of mildew in that space.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard, it's part of the red line construction, scope of work, in terms of the, replacing, the flooring and power washing, scraping,
Right.
painting.
Yeah, the flooring said that it was being considered of being put out for bid. And the other is the planting areas, the particularly where the rats have those huge holes. Nothing was mentioned about any sort of treating or getting rid of those rats. You're almost going to have to dig up that area. Do you know what's going to be done on 56th Street?
Excuse me.
I'm so sorry that you're ill, Richard.
Yeah, me too. I haven't been sick in years and I'm not happy. I'm sorry that wasn't included in the scope of work. The building manager had identified that, and he had actually verbally made a solution for addressing those rat holes. So.
And Richard, I just wanted to make sure that whatever you do, that it'll be safe for animals, safe for dogs. Not that owners' pets are going to perhaps
Right.
become
Well,
ill or
uh,
poisoned.
it's, again, anything they do has to be safe for animals other than rats. One of the things that we discussed while we were on the walk, and Leslie objected to it as a dog walker, I wanted to put a prohibition on dogs in the park, and that was voted down. So dogs will still be allowed in the park.
Anita, can I interrupt you? Do you mind, you sent over a list of items to us. Can I share that with Richard?
Of course, but I really only have like 3-4 top items. Some of them were mentioned in the letter, so they're really not, it's really not significant. But yes, please share it with Richard so that
Thank
he
you.
can
Well,
give it to the Sheffield, particularly about the rat holes. Richard, what is the name of the kiosk? What will the business name be? Do you know?
I did know that. My colleague Mike Curley is on. Mike, do you have a memory?
Sorry, I do not recall, Richard. I can look into it right now though and see if I can find it.
I
Yeah,
would just like
it's
to
a
be
cute
able to
Italian
promote,
name.
I would like to be able to promote the business.
yeah,
And
Rivaldi,
any
it's a-
information, it doesn't have to be today or now, but if you could just make sure that you get back to me with the name of the business and who the operators are, and I will do my best to promote the business when they open up.
And Anita, I believe there's a sign on the kiosk now. I think it's Rivaldi is a Upper West Side coffee shop of some sort. So you may find it just by walking by.
Okay, great.
Sure.
Very good,
Joe?
very good. So,
I-
and there is
Sorry.
just, Thomas Balsley is the architect who designed Balsley Park. And the reason why he created the mound and the pitch was because people are going to hate this one. He wanted to be able to have the slant so that people could lay in the sun. And I don't know who would want to lay on that mound. Yeah.
People do. I've seen them.
People do, yeah.
People do. It's green
Yeah.
space in the city. All right. Thank
Anyway,
you,
I just
Anita.
want to thank you. Thank you very
So,
much.
so the Michael just emailed me this www.pizza-collective.com.
Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, I have two suggestions to make. First, for the rat hole issue for language, Bob Benfado can provide this for you. There is a totally non-toxic mechanism used for getting rid of rats. It literally puts carbon dioxide through dry ice down the burrows and kills them in the burrows. And the bid, HYHK bid, has the machine, and my office has used this machine. So I think we should get that to you, Richard, so you can say that's how you're gonna do it, because Anita, and it goes to first to Leslie, doesn't hurt any dogs, and to Anita, no excavation needed, you just suffocate them. The second thing is the mound, but I would suggest some language. And could you amend your letter, Richard, to include the thing about the rats? I think that's important to put on record.
Right.
And then the mound, which is the point of, slight disagreement, I would just offer language to say, leveling the mound to the degree not to disturb the adjacent tree roots. I think that's the issue. And that involves some exploratory looking at it, because roots are all, they're different locations or whatever, and it could be worked out.
Yeah, but it could be the roots are on the trees that are being removed, so it wouldn't matter.
I don't know the
So
exact
Richard, we're gonna
circumstance,
look
but
into that.
the notion about not to disturb the existing roots, that's all.
Yeah.
Paul, I think the trees that are going to be removed are the seedlings that are in the back of the park by the fence.
Great, okay. All right,
I have some points, but
more, David, yeah, go ahead.
Well, first, I'd like Janine to show the photos that you have.
We've seen them here.
Has everybody seen them?
I mean,
I just pull up
we
my
pulled them up
phone.
on the phone.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
We've been looking at.
Well,
Yeah, we've been looking at
trying to
it,
understand
and
that.
many of us were on the
Okay,
sidewalk.
because the reason I mentioned the photos is that you will see in there what the park used to look like.
Yes, which was nice.
It was beautiful. It was a wonderful park. It was what it was meant to be. It was a reprieve in the city. That's what you see on those pictures.
The old-
What you
old
see
photos.
now, you all walk through it. But trying to get it back to what it was, to me, is the key. When I look at this, and yes, I'm an attorney, so I look at words differently than most people. I see a commitment to remove trees. I see no commitment to replace them. I see no commitment to replace the shrubberies. And what I consider making it very easy, what shrubs, look at the photograph, there's one photograph of the shrubs in front of the Sheffield. A half a block away from that park. Those same shrubs, same landscaper, could just as easily put those shrubs in this park. I'm not asking for anything any different, but just the same number of shrubs per square foot. Look at the pictures, there used to be flowers in this park. The only commitment I see is to take out trees. I don't see a commitment to replace trees, much less shrubs.
Richard, can you respond?
Yeah,
to that?
Paul, can I address that?
Yeah,
First of all, he's reading a commitment letter absent the site plan. The site plan is the same site plan that was approved in '98. City planning did not let us note on the plan what was going to be removed and replaced. They just approved the site plan. So this is showing what the work program is, but the site plan that we submitted to the community board is what the park will look like. So if he looked at the site plan and at the letter, he'll have a full understanding of what the park will look like come May 15th.
Richard, I'm looking at the site plan or the proposal you put together, and it does not include the site plan. And irrespective, the commitment letter should then make a reference to the site plan with a certain date to tie it all together. Doesn't that make sense?
That makes sense.
Because the proposal does not have a site plan. If you say the site plan is there and it says install, or you must have X, Y, or Z, bushes, trees, whatever, then attach the site plan.
It used to look, make it look.
No, not a photograph. It should be a site plan and it should be referenced by date and attached to this letter.
Whatever works for you.
I'm talking.
Joe,
It's the non-lawyer speaking.
Joe, what was forwarded to the community board was not the site plan?
Correct.
You're looking at my PDF. The application itself has the site plan.
I know, Richard, I'm talking what's that was in the Dropbox that got printed out, so that's why there's some confusion in the room.
David, do you have more?
Sure. About the rats, it's great to get rid of the holes. But from what I've experienced, that wouldn't keep the rats from running around in the park. You have those containers that are meant to kill rats, and that I believe you're supposed to have some kind of rat poison or something inside. That would be nice if they were replaced. The inside was replaced, so they would actually be active.
David, why don't you continue through your list?
What?
Yeah, continue through your list.
Okay. The garbage behind the walls, I don't see any reference to getting rid of that. It's clean right now because you all cleaned it up for the walkthrough. But even since the walkthrough, if you start looking again, you'll see crap behind the walls. You'll see crap on the area that was mentioned before. Anita mentioned along 56th Street already is starting to get trash thrown in. I talked to the guy yesterday who was there in the afternoon, and I said, what are you doing? Well, he says, my supervisor didn't tell me to do that, so I don't do it. The area needs to be taken care of.
So Richard, can we get a response? If they're gonna be some kind of.
I was not gonna respond to every single issue. I want David to go through his list.
Well, I'd like, because we'd be writing the letter, I'd like to know.
All right, David.
If that's gonna be in there.
Richard, respond to the Senate regular maintenance cleanup schedule of the park, please.
It's supposed to be inspected and walked through multiple times a day. I'll speak to the manager and relay that his own staff is giving misinformation to passerbyers.
Well, if you would, Richard, please remind them that behind those posts and behind the walls, that's also part of the park.
I will.
The other thing, Sam's masonry, you talk about, but do not mention the brick areas at the staircase at 56 and 9 that needs to be replaced.
It's again, it's part of the scope of work. We identified it when we walked through.
Yes, but I don't see it in the commitment letter. The paint, to just repaint, if it's that same paint, we're gonna have the same problem, because you guys have done this over and over and over, and the same result. It looks nice for a couple of months, and then it looks like it does today.
The Sheffield has made a commitment that whatever paint they put on now, they will maintain.
They will maintain?
That's their commitment. They're
So
not
they're
they're
gonna-
not doing a $200,000 investment to have it, deteriorate.
So every time it peels, they're gonna repaint it?
That's their promise.
Wow, it's gonna be interesting. I live next door, so I'll be watching. Who do I call when they don't?
You call the manager of the Sheffield.
And the person you met, when you were.
Manager of the Sheffield and copy Jesse Bodine.
Okay. The water fountain will be repaired if possible. That water fountain was working perfectly until the Sheffield took it apart during COVID. I cannot imagine you cannot fix it or replace it. Would you commit to that, please?
They're going to look at what the problem is. If it can be fixed, they'll fix it.
The problem is, I'm looking for a commitment to replace the water fountain.
Richard, is the water fountain on the original plans that are going to be attached to this?
Yes.
So therefore it has to be repaired.
Okay.
I really got to say the words, if possible.
Thank you.
If you're relying upon the plans that are attached, then it has to be done, right?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I've noticed you all were talking about proceeds from the kiosk to keep up the park. Is this in writing somewhere, or is it a verbal?
It's in his contract to clean within 1,000 feet of his site.
Which is the entire park, right?
No, the park is bigger than 1,000 feet.
The block's only 200 feet, is 800 feet wide, Richard.
Let me double check that.
If it's 1,000 feet, it covers the entire park.
Yeah, no, then I'm speaking out of turn.
And
I will.
And can you reference in your letter and attach that contract, because that tells us that will be done.
I'll see if we can.
Or reference and attach the provisions of that contract as opposed to the contract.
Okay.
Paul, can I make a motion for the letter?
No, David is still speaking.
Were you talking
Oh,
about the play
gotcha.
area? That's what the play area, all that we have in this letter is, that we are pricing, not committing to.
Correct.
Is there no commitment about the playground?
We're gonna look into the resurfacing, and as Leslie has asked, for maybe a potential reconfiguration, and as Mr. Bass responded, while doing the work, they're going to see what they can do, and if they make adjustments, they're going to have to come back to us for a recertification 3 years from now.
That's a big. Make adjustments, making it child friendly and playable.
Whatever
Some
adjustments
kind
they
of
can make.
standard,
Correct, yes.
but will there be a standard by which they will be judged?
It'll be the standard based on the existing play area definition of the existing site line.
Richard, is there a requirement in how these are reviewed by DCP for that kind of material?
Say that again, Joe.
Is there a requirement how the play area surfaces are reviewed by DHCP?
No.
DCP?
No.
No. So there's nothing at all in terms of design standards?
No.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Also, the letter mentions it would be including but not limited to, what else is being considered?
I think that was a common sense clause that if they come across something that wasn't mentioned and it needs fixing, they would fix it.
Those are my comments, but to come back to the other thing that I mentioned last time, it would be nice if there were some teeth to make sure that these things actually happen, and if they don't, something happens.
We're in agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have two things. I could, Richard, I think there was some talk about signage on the park.
Right, there's existing signage that we're going to amend to prohibit drug and smoking. And we've already spoken with Gail Brewer about coordinating with the police department that if we see drug use in the park, that the police, patrol that area. They come by and say, it's legal outside the park. Don't smoke dope here.
That's great. And you can read it, it's gonna be readable.
It's the students when they get out of school.
Mhm.
At 3 or 4 o'clock,
That's
because
not-
I'm opening rides there.
You see them in there in the morning.
All right, what else should I say?
Just one
Exactly.
question.
One more question. Rick?
I don't know if this is possible, but is there any way for the Sheffield and Park Vendome to have some kind of communication every couple of months to say things are working, or what about this? So we have a communication, so we don't have to come back ever again to this committee about this. Is there any way, Richard, do you think we could develop a relationship between you guys, so we can talk and you say, what about this?
I'll raise that with the building leadership and see what their response is.
Actually, my understanding is that originally there was some kind of cooperative agreement between the Sheffield, the Park Vendome, and the Hearst building. The other building on the block. I don't know whatever happened, would be interesting.
Well, they're all on the same zoning lot, so that's the cooperation. But
it wasn't cooperative to operate it ever.
no.
I mean, there's an opportunity here. I think there's a positive opportunity here to get this working.
Absolutely.
I hear it. I hear you. It's a good suggestion. I'll pass it on.
It would be good to send those pictures to Richard so he can see what the park used to do, what it was. And that's not just Balsley's design. When you look at the photograph, which I got online, that's what used to be there, and that's what should be the standard to replace it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Leslie had her hand up. Leslie, go for it.
I'm sorry, I want to really put this to an end, but I just want to know, and I'm going to ask the chair's discretion. Can we, or should we, maybe it doesn't have to be tonight, should we send a separate letter to DCP just saying that we don't I'm stuck on the child play area because it's not a child play area, it's disgusting and everything else. Can we set the foundation for what Richard said, that he has to, when they reapply, they have to go through that process? Can we send a letter to them saying CB4 does not like this area, we encourage them to look at this area, so then when they do reapply, or when we do go, we have a foundation of that, we're on record saying that this, this is not a great area of the park.
Leslie, my suggestion would be, as part of your resolution, to investigate that. If you ask DCP to do it now, they'll do it now, and they'll delay the certification, which will delay the vendor from getting into the kiosk.
Well, that's why I don't want to put it in this letter.
I would say, as part of, one of your whereas clauses, to investigate the future redesign of the play area's entrance.
Okay, that makes sense. So maybe we do the letter after you get your recertification. We do that maybe at 2 or 3 months down the road.
Or you can put it in this resolution, whichever, but I would not invite city planning to rethink this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
JD and I just nodded and said to include some soft language about the investigation of alternative uses for the child play area.
Thank you.
Just leave it as an open alternative.
Right. Thank you.
All right, Leslie, I thought you were gonna make the motion.
Sure, I make the motion for all that in the letter.
And Kevin seconds it. Everybody in favor? Anybody opposed? Any PNE? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Richard, thank you. Go get some Theraflu and get back into bed.
And thank you very much. Be well.
I watched last time I was here, I watched you all today. And I want to thank you for what you do. Not just for me, I've lived in New York since '68. I love the city. And listening to what you all do as volunteers is just amazing to me. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Will you come to every meeting?
Then I would say just that. Very good. We have a new business item now to talk about the landmark issues on MSMX.
So, right before this meeting, I have hard copies for people to look at because it was put in the Dropbox, but very late in the day because we had to work on this very quickly. Yes, if you haven't, I made paper just in case. So, yesterday, the board leadership, Jessica, the two land use committee chairs, and myself met with, Eric Boxer and City Council Land Use and discussed MSMX and the various requests we made as part of our position we just took. And very surprisingly, if you note in our MSMX letter, there was an appendix with certain landmarks that we asked for, right? Unbelievably, the Landmarks Preservation Commission has contacted our council member to say they want to look at landmarks. I've never heard of this before, so let's see how that goes. But he asked us then yesterday to amplify that appendix and make it clearer as to what our requests were. So far at this moment, we've identified a number of properties. The first page is the New Yorker Hotel, which you should note, that this key is SNR means state and national register eligible, and then NYC landmarks eligible. That means that this evaluation was done by the Landmarks Commission itself. And they said that these were designations were possible on these properties. Obviously, the New York Hotel is a very famous building, and it has that iconic New Yorker sign both on the front, on both sides, and then on the top of the building. It is an example of incredible Art Deco work. The next one is the Hoover Building. This is on the corner of 35th and 8th, 501, 507 8th Avenue. These were identified as part of the Hudson Yards EIS and identified again as part of this EIS for MSMX. And these two buildings are, again, remarkable looking Art Deco garment buildings, and they work together as a grouping together. So the first page has the Hoover Building, then you turn the page, and you're merely looking now at the same block, but from the north, looking south. It looks, when we look at these, certainly, these are great residential conversion opportunities, and these are well built above the 13 FAR we recommended, let alone the 18 FAR that was proposed. The next building, now we're into Chelsea. So what happened today is that I worked on this and sent this information down to Kerry and Greg, and they reviewed this and said, yes, we want to move on these. This is 245 7th Avenue. This is a very odd building that looks like a Renaissance office building. So very interesting Italian Renaissance and a very unique building on 7th Avenue. The next one is the federal office building to 7th Avenue with Whole Foods in the base of that on the east side of 7th Avenue. Again, I love it, for the National Cloak and Suit Company in 1914.
Daggers.
Yes, the next page is a remarkable building, the left court clothing center building. Left court was very busy in building a lot of buildings across the garment center, and it's a very famous architect, Eli Jacques Kahn, who was well known for his Art Deco buildings. So again, very effective, and if you look at these, for example, the building with Whole Foods has already been converted to residential. So that is actually a residential co-op. These buildings are good residential candidates. I love the fact that there was an abstract geometric style, which was on the lobby, which is removed. Next page gives you the former McBurney YMCA. When we send this to Landmarks, we'll give you also, this is a true block building. It was the YMCA and its facilities on 23rd through block to 24th was a YMCA dormitory style YMCA, and that's called the Christopher today as it's operated as an affordable housing building. And again, built in 1900, and it has an incredible history, both its architect, the idea that it's, named after an Irish immigrant, But additionally, very heavily factors in the gay community history in Chelsea. The last one is 300 West 38th Street, and this is an absolutely unique building. We talked about this in our meetings. It is only 3 stories, but it is Art Nouveau and Egyptian Revival. You have to look at this closely online. There are all sorts of heads and things, and the building is extant. It has a full copper cornice around it. It was identified in the Hudson Yards EIS as being landmark eligible. It was not landmarked at that point, but it did not show in the EIS this time. So it's kind of curious that it can be identified as being landmark eligible, then but not now. So these are our list. We had asked the Chelsea committee to come up with anything else, but at least we can put this together and get this to our council member. We would like to do it. We intend to do a walk with landmarks next week sometime. Sort of pick out. I didn't realize the section of the EIS. Please look at it. These are the buildings on Community Board 4. There are so many more on Board 5 on this mixture of blocks that are truly like unique or spectacular buildings.
I would suggest you send this to Board 5 to the 2 co-chairs.
That's a good idea.
To give them an idea, because they were interested also when we talk with them, that preserve it.
I was wondering if we could do a follow-up meeting with them too, now that we've had this back and forth.
Because
Might be a good idea.
this is great.
But I think we're on an accelerated timeframe with the count where it is unique that I've never heard landmarks reaching out to the council member to say, we'd like to do this development project, can we do some landmarks?
Do we want to do a separate letter on just this issue to the council member and talk with landmarks?
I would propose to do an administrative letter. This is already in our letter. It's already in our MSMX letter, right? And it adds on some more buildings at the request of the council member.
So do an admin letter to the council member.
Right, exactly. And then as we delve further into it, the companion action, I think you're right, JD, meeting with Board 5. So we always want to be in lockstep with them and how they want to proceed on these things. Because if we're gonna do a tour, these are 2 sides of an avenue. It's not just one side. You're gonna look around and see what's what.
Yeah, but this is great. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Commentary from the committee.
It's had to be produced this afternoon. That's why it's so fast.
Great, very good. Then we support an administrative letter
Yes.
on this issue, and thank you, Matt. All right, anything else? I just want to touch briefly on an issue, 2 issues. One is we keep talking about and we keep pushing off is the revisiting of the housing plan, the affordable housing plan. You know, we are now experiencing the impact of the FAR residential cap being lifted, and many developers are coming to us with plans. We're tackling the site of Intrepid, at site K, at CBS Studios, there's the DeWitt Clinton at West 57th Street. So I'd like us to have sort of a thought process of what we think makes sense, and sort of plan that a little bit more. HHHS is going to be discussing the housing plan at their meeting. I'd like for it to also come through this committee and have some discussion about what we think makes sense for a higher density housing plan in our district.
Higher density housing locations.
Higher density based on and locations, all right. So I want to make sure that we keep that in mind, and to that point, today, some of us met with the development team at West 57th Street. There's a parcel through block between 57, 58, between 10th and 11th.
On the north side through,
Yeah, so it goes between 57 and 258, between 10th and 11th. It's a 3 or 4 story building right now.
515.
517.
515 West 5 Slide.
That was 517, okay. That developer, the development team came to us because they went forward to DCP to request a rezoning for residential in that block, and DCP said, go for the 18 FAR. So they met with us to talk a little bit about that and some strategy around that. So we've had some preliminary conversations. The timetable on that is likely to be 2nd quarter of 2026. So it's good that the developers are talking to us early to get some thoughts, but it'd be helpful for the leadership of the committee to have a sense of what the committee's feel is on these high density residential components and where they should be.
And really just a plan as opposed to like just all over the place, like, if we're gonna be in favor of it. Some sense of how.
And one of the points I made during the meeting today was that we have a lot of individual one-off sites, and none of them triggers a school seat analysis, a traffic analysis, a public safety component analysis, because they're all small enough that they don't have that impact. But cumulatively and collectively, that will have an impact on our schools, on our public safety factors, on our community facility space, on our green space. So we have to think through how we want this to look in the next 10 years, so.
So between the Wickland North site that we looked at already, the future CBS site and this one, all within a 3-block area, if they all go to 18, we have a huge impact. We could have like, 10,000 people living there. We have to manage this, that's all. And it's all in one block. Yeah, and how do we manage it? I don't know. The answer is, I want to see upzoning there because we've proposed this for a long time. But we can't just say, boom, and then all of a sudden wake up and say, where are the services to support?
Tens of thousands of new residents in our area.
So I just want to note that I've asked, through the housing committee, I think we may be having a special meeting about the affordable housing plan, because it's not only, it's an update, right? And so much has happened since we updated it last 2 years ago. So that might really merit a special, special session, and then everybody can join. Yeah, we're thinking about that, because it'll be put out the information in advance, and then here's what happened. Like, for example, there's a whole section about the development on the Port Authority there. Well, that didn't happen. But we asked for something else to happen. Like, there's so many things that have changed. So that's got to take time to win its way through.
I see a hand raised in the public. Janine, can you move Carrie Michaels over? Or Carrie, if you don't want to speak, if you could just lower your hand so we know.
Joe's at the last words of the month, what we talking about.
I don't know when we got it, that's still schedule. Feel like the waves.
Jimmy, are you able to move Carrie? Thank you, Janine. There. Hi, Carrie. You're muted, Carrie, if you want to speak with us.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. I've been on the meeting here. Thank you. I just wanted to ask, is the 305 West 49th Street potential garage demolition and construction on the agenda tonight? I said other business, and I wasn't sure. I've been getting a lot of the land.
It is not. And when the application comes in, right now there is no application on file. When the application comes in, there will be public notice and it will be a formal agenda item before we proceed.
I'll keep looking out. I did send a note to Jesse and Janine and Joe. Thank you again. You had brought up something in the January meeting that I very much appreciate. I'll ask Jesse to pass that email on to you all. Thank you so much again. Have a good night. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you.
Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
I can first. Very good.
Thanks so much.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Janine.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Leslie.